Welcome back, Karters. July has come to a close, and it's time that we take a look at some Mario Kart DS world records. A total of 11 world records were set across 4 different tracks by 4 very talented players. Let's not waste any more time and get right into the action. Let's start out like we did in May with the Sky Garden Fast Lap. This time, Dasher took a further 122 milliseconds off his own record with a time of 18.527. If you remember his comments from the previous time, he suggested a time like this was possible, but he hadn't gotten it yet. Well, it certainly looks like he finally clutched the run he was looking for with this one. He comments, "Really solid. I love playing this category though. Maybe 0.4 someday?" I've already covered this category in the May video, so if you want an in-depth explanation of that, please check out that video. But in simple terms, keep PRB, jump over this gap, jump over this much tighter gap, shroom across these clouds, and don't lose speed and get to the end quick. Good stuff to Dasher for setting a nice record in one of your favorite categories. Let's keep on rolling with Dasher for a little bit longer and take a look at a very strong record he set this month. On July 17th, he cut 16 milliseconds from his Yoshi Falls Fast Lap time with a 15.018 run, just short of sub 15 seconds. Okay, so I wrote this big long monologue explaining how our community ranking site works and how big of a time 14 seconds would be, but I'm gonna condense it into like 2 sentences. All you gotta know is that in 2009, a bunch of players came up with a set of goal times, and over the past 12 years, Dasher has achieved 63 of those 64 times. The last time, of course, is Yoshi Falls Fast Lap in under 15 seconds, which Dasher is now 19 milliseconds from achieving. So let's take a look at the run and see what needs to be done to sub 15. Starting off, this is a lap 2 fast lap, which means that Dasher starts by doing a super tight set of mini turbos close to the right wall to save a little bit of time. Coming down the slope, he uses his shroom to quickly drive through the waterfall and change 3 MTs up the slope. The transition to the bridge is very tight, and Dasher takes a direct line to the next waterfall. A mini turbo is released right before entering the waterfall, allowing him to hop over a great portion of it while at a high speed. Dasher drives some extremely tight lines through the final turn, and with one last mini turbo, he hops parallel to the wall to preserve his direction and speed perfectly to the finish. This run was really good, and there really aren't many places to save time, but I'll explain a few optimizations that could be made. Right before hitting the shroom, Dasher loses his boost for 2 frames. It may not sound like a lot, but when we're talking about frames, every last bit matters. And honestly, if we're looking at the second half of the run, that was just about the greatest and most perfect ending ever seen in this track, so maybe just do that again? Memes aside, there is one more thing that Dasher's time can be affected by, and it's not really something he can control. Let me explain. The lap timer bug. A very complicated miscalculation that the game makes that I'm going to greatly oversimplify for the purposes of this video. It all comes down to how the game calculates your time for a lap. The game can only check to see if you finished a lap every frame, or 1/60th of a second, yet the timer is precise to 3 decimal places, or 1,000th of a second. In order to calculate your exact lap time, the game takes your position the frame before you finish the lap, your position on the frame you finish the lap, and the position of the finish line in order to give you an exact decimal. The problem is, the game doesn't start tracking the time of your second lap until the first frame you cross the line, which makes the length of your next lap ever so slightly different. Basically, your lap can be a bit longer because you got a bad crossing position. The best decimals for the lap preceding end in 16, 32, 49, 66, 82, and 99. Dasher says that with this strategy in perfect human mini turbos would likely give a time around 14.900, so theoretically there is still much time to save. Regardless, huge congrats to Dasher for getting ever closer to a monumental time, and the best of luck of achieving it in August. Up next is Tyga on Donut Plains 1 PRB, where he cashed in 2 world records. First on the 3 lap with a time of 51.410, and then on the fast lap with a time of 16.714. The 3 lap record was a cut of 134 milliseconds over his previous record, and puts him a massive 298 milliseconds ahead of second place for the category. Simply put, this run was clean and tight. Tyga used the Dry Bomber's lengthy requirement for maintaining PRB to his advantage as he skillfully glides and tactfully double hops around each corner. Tyga begins his run with a string of RMTs, double hopping on the bridge to stay tight. Transitioning to the grass, he does a double hop and reverses his facing direction, setting him up for a really tight line which allows him to double hop around the next turn at a great angle. Inside the pipe on the next turn, Tyga delays a bit before stringing together some more RMTs to get him around the final corner. He stays to the right on the lap transition to save time. As for laps 2 and 3, well, they're more or less the same. Tyga is very consistent with this strat, and it shows as he saves time over his previous record on all 3 laps. At the end of lap 3, we see Tyga perform a similar ending to the fast lap that we covered last month, as he steers around the last corner and shrooms to the end to close out the record. Now Tyga would do the exact ending again when he improved the fast lap record by 10 milliseconds just 9 days later. Compared to Dasher's run last month, which was reviewed in detail, this run is just slightly tighter all around. Tyga incorporates the new double hop that Dasher added and does not get the wall clip on the final turn, missing out on a bit of time save. Based on what I said last month, the possibility of a 16.6 run is here and still very much on the table, and both Tyga and Dasher are capable if they want to go for it. Congrats to Tyga and good luck as we move on to our next track this month. Get ready for a very spooky segment as we explore the 6 records set on Banshee Boardwalk. We begin with an established track veteran Beta who got 3 straight records in the fast lap going from 34.169 to 34.092, inching ever closer to the sub 34. Banshee Boardwalk, also known as Pontil Stregaro in Italian, is a very challenging track. To drive a world record here, you need immense kart control, patience, and mastery over subtle mechanics. The flap here is performed on lap 2 because you can navigate the first turn of the race with a much better angle. Beta hops over the corners to save time on the first 2 turns. Next, Beta drops down and does some tight snaking while saying hello to Bubba the Fish. Yes, that is his canon name, and performs a tight slip drift around the corner. Beta is forced to readjust his kart slightly after this and proceeds with some risky snaking to the shroom. He drops off the platform and shrooms in the air to land cleanly and stay tight to the wall, entering the house. The house is tricky to navigate because of the big walls in your way, but Beta expertly crosses the gap and makes his way around the green wall. Beta delays the release of his next mini turbo to minimize the time spent turning to the right, before chaining some MTs out of the house. In the last set of turns, Beta does some nice neutral MTs to keep his line direct and as close to the wall as he can manage. He snakes to the finish to close out a new fast lap record. Now, we were all expecting Beta to post another world record soon, but alas, nothing more came from him. However, Tyga was more than happy to challenge Beta's unrivaled dominance on this track, and over the next 2 weeks he would improve the 3-lap and flat. Let's start with the flat. Tyga actually posted a 34.080 a few days before, but we're only going to be looking at the world record of 34.013. Like Beta, he starts his attempt on lap 2 and much of the execution is the same until we reach Bubba. The slip drift up the slope and recovery is much cleaner here, and Tyga spends much less time steering afterwards and gets a much more direct line to the shroom spot. Tyga spaces his mini turbos very well in the house before finishing to stay even with Beta's pace in these sections. Altogether, Tyga saves 79 milliseconds over Beta, but remains just 14 milliseconds away from a revolutionary sub. But this isn't the first record from Tyga that came up just short of a huge second barrier, as 5 days earlier, he would post a 3-lap time of 1:43.056, a cut of 91 milliseconds from Beta's previous record. Beta has been utterly dominant in the 3-lap for the better half of a decade, posting the first sub 144 time back in 2016, and gradually bringing it down to 1:43.247, which he set last May. In fact, literally no one except Beta had ever achieved a time below 144 before this, and he had a 0.8 second lead over second place, which is unheard of at world record level. But Tyga had enough of the statistical anomaly, and here's how he crushed Beta at his own game. At the start, Tyga intentionally forgoes an MT because it would put him at an awkward angle going forward. Much is the same to the flap, and Tyga gets a clean transition after the Bubba bridge. The BLS only gets 1 shroom in time trials, so Tyga doesn't use it in favor of saving it for lap 2. The same fundamentals from the flap are used throughout this run and on lap 2. Tyga gets a split that would have netted him a world record just 2 weeks beforehand. Into lap 3, the run is on some next level pace, and there's certainly potential for a sub, but he's gonna need to set a new best split to achieve that. Tyga plays his heart out on the final lap and comes up just 1 millisecond behind the best known split, and is still 57 milliseconds too slow for a sub. So how are we gonna break the barrier then? Well, let's take a look at the best splits. Tyga is 78 milliseconds slower than the best ever lap 1, so if he was able to close even a fraction of that gap, his chances would improve. Furthermore, Tyga could somehow pull off an even more insane shroom lap and get a split closer to his fast lap record, or he could even get a better lap 3. Actually, that last lap was pretty great already, so Again, just maybe do that again. It's still unclear whether Tyga or Beta will get the last lap here and potentially claim those juicy second subs, but still, major props to both of them for having the grit to push these records further down. DK Pass and Airship Fortress are waiting for another member in the 142 Club after all. Okay, say goodbye to Bubba and get ready to fly as we head to the skies for our final record of July. It feels like ages since Dasher's improvement to Sky Garden shortcut flap, but Canadian player Dr. Mario arrived just before the July World Records party ended with his improvement to the track's non-PRB flap on July 30th. The Donut Plains champ drove a time of 20.886, a cut of 7 milliseconds from Beta's record set 364 days earlier. Now before we look at this record, I want you to take all the stuff I've discussed about the shortcut flap and just throw it all out the window. It's not going to be useful here. Doc starts the race by using a bit of permitted PRB driving to navigate across the off-road and over the gap without having to use the boost ramp. So actually, this beginning is quite similar to the other lap, so I'm actually a huge liar. But in all seriousness, you want to avoid that ramp at all costs. It loses like a second. The remaining boost is used to return back to the road where Doc performs 2 LMTs and hops over the gap inside the vine. Some quick snaking with some tactical double hops sprinkled in brings us to the first shroom. After releasing the mini turbo, he hops into the off-road and shrooms as he lands, steering left and uses the speed to hop over the gap and land on the other side. But it's not over yet. An LMT and a quick hop allow Doc to recover back to the road just as the boost runs out. On the next turn, Doc uses Drybone's low weight to his advantage as he hops between the vine and the wall and sets himself up for the second shroom. Even at a reduced speed, this next section is lightning quick, so pay close attention. Hopping into the off-road, Doc shrooms on landing and does 2 quick hops on the edge of the clouds across the gap. A quick mini turbo is performed, followed by another hop across certain depth, all in an effort to return to the road once again. This line is optimal choice in this category because Drybone's standard cart can navigate off-road while losing much less speed than the BLS would. After a precise second shroom, Doc is back on the road and does a quick chain of LMTs to the finish, edging out the record, which is his first world record not on Donut Plains 3-lap, proving he has the skills to compete across the track list. Big congrats to the 11th non-PRB god on your new record this month, and I'm quite excited to see what you will go for next. Post puddings here. I kind of forgot to write an outro, so I just want to say thank you to everybody who contributed to the video and kind of encouraged me to actually get it done. And I'm really excited to work on the August video, which will probably be up a little bit sooner in the month than this one. Thanks for being patient, guys. Stay classy, Carters, and may the MTs be with you.